Good evening and guten Abend from Hamburg. My name is Kim Wünschmann. I'm the director of the Institute for the History of the German Jews here in Hamburg. And I welcome you all also on behalf of the Stanley Burton Centre for Holocaust and Genocide Studies at the University of Leicester and the Wiener Holocaust Library in London to this year's Holocaust Memorial lecture with Barbara Yelin, a lecture that is jointly organized by all our three institutions. We are grateful to see so many of you here in the audience, as together we want to mark International Holocaust Memorial Day. And I would like to emphasize the importance for research institutions, for libraries such as ours, to mark this day, to take part in our community's efforts to keep the history and the memory of the Holocaust alive, to reach out with our scholarship, our resources, to broader audiences, and to connect locally and internationally to initiatives and people who work tirelessly to make sure that those who suffered from Nazi persecution will never be forgotten. We remember the victims and we honor the survivors who inspire us to stand up for this mission and to carry it into the future, especially as we are witnessing an alarming rise of anti-Semitism around the globe and are urgently called upon to defend democracy, human rights, our free and diverse societies from attacks from the ultra-right. The theme of this year's Holocaust Memorial Day is Fragility of Freedom. It reminds us that freedom, our freedom, is indeed fragile and it cannot be taken for granted. The Nazis passed discriminatory legislation that denied Jews many freedoms and restricted their rights in Germany and in the countries that came under German occupation during the Second World War. Jewish people in those countries had many of their freedoms taken away. They were forced into ghettos, lived in cramped conditions, and often doing hard labor for the Nazis and for the German industries. They were deported to concentration camps, to death camps. And among those countries were the Netherlands, occupied by Nazi Germany in May 1940. And among the persecuted was then 5-year-old Emmie from The Hague, about whose story we'll learn today from Barbara Yelin. Emmie Arbel survived the Holocaust and she lives in Israel today, and her story powerfully tells of the fragility of freedom. Whilst Allied liberators freed Holocaust survivors from the physical imprisonment, these women, men, and children then found themselves alone, often unable to return home, having to move to a new country, learn a new language, and rebuild their existence from scratch. They had to start new lives with a painful absence of family members and friends, and such was the experience of Emmie Arbel. Barbara Yelin has found most sensitive ways to tell Emmie Arbel's story of the fragility of freedom as a moving graphic novel. Barbara, who joins us from Munich, is an artist and an illustrator trained at Hamburg University of Applied Sciences. She's the author of numerous graphic novels, including the award-winning book Irmina, published in 2014, and the illustrated biography of Israeli actress Hannah Maron, published in 2016. Her work on Emmie Arbel is the result of an intimate co-creation between the two women, the survivor and the artist. It first appeared in the anthology entitled But I Live, 3 stories of child survivors of the Holocaust, which has been published by the University of Toronto Press in 2021. And it has since developed into a second book about Arbel's experiences during and after the Holocaust, published in German as Emmie Arbel, die Farbe der Erinnerung, this past November. Barbara Yelin will be reading from her work for about 20 to 25 minutes. She will then be in conversation with Alexander Korb from the Stanley Burton Centre for Holocaust and Genocide Studies. And Alex is Associate Professor in Modern European History at the University of Leicester. And together with Charlotte Chaly, he co-edited the book Emmie Arbel, die Farbe der Erinnerung. And I would also like to introduce Christine Schmidt, the Deputy Director and Head of Research at Wiener Holocaust Library. And Christine will deliver concluding remarks. Before I hand over to Barbara for the reading, I would like to let you know that we are recording this event. Your webcam will not be seen in the recording. If you would like to ask a question, please type your question into the chat function, and you can do so already during the lecture. We will then try to take up questions, but as time is limited, we cannot promise to do so. We ask for your understanding. And now, without further ado, I hand over to you, Barbara.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me tonight, for inviting me to speak tonight about Emmie Arbel's life, about her memories on this important occasion today. And I prepared some parts of the book I drew about Emmie, and also in dialogue with Emmie Arbel. And I share the screen now for the images. It's here. Okay. Sorry, one moment. I'm a graphic novelist. The stories I tell are drawn and put together with words. And this is the title page of the first story I did together in dialogue with Emmie Arbel about her memories. And let me speak a little bit about when I met Emmie Arbel for the first time. We were both part of interdisciplinary and international project about how can we give on the memories of Holocaust survivors. How can we tell them? How can we narrate them? And the importance of that. And 4 years ago, I met Emmie Arbel in the memorial of Ravensbrück. And the first thing I saw from her, Emmie Arbel is 86 today, living in Israel, but she comes once a year at least. She comes at a minimum. She visits the memorial of Ravensbrück to speak there about her memories, and why she does it. It will be part of the story I read today. These two images are both showing Emmie Arbel, and we see her on the left side, 1942 in Den Haag, before she was deported with her Jewish family, and we see her a second time, 1946 probably, in an orphanage. The parents and grandparents have been murdered by the Nazis, and what we did was to try to fill this gap in between what happened. I start reading. In early spring 2020, I visited Emmie Arbel in Kiryat Tivon, Israel, to interview her about her memories of the Holocaust. We spent 4 days together. Big car. Yes, my car is my husband and my legs. You want some coffee too? Yes, please. I like your house. This is much better than the Nescafe at the Airbnb. Huh. I told you to stay in my guest room. Do you take sugar? Thanks, just milk for me. I don't take sugar either. But I always put the sugar bowl on the table with her spoon. I don't have anything else from my mother. It was in our house. She touched it, and I touched it. Only this spoon. And nothing else. I do not remember when this picture was taken. But I remember when we were at the photo studio. I think that my dress was blue with white and red polka dots. And I look happy, don't I? Smile, young lady. Beautiful. Can you please put the penguin back with the other toys? Thank you. I was born in Holland. My family was Jewish. I had parents and 2 brothers. Let's hurry home. Pa is coming home tonight. Yes, Mommy. Come, Emmie. I don't remember. I was 4.5 when 2 policemen came to our house and took us to Westerbork transit camp. There were many people and we had no privacy. My mother put up a, how do you call it? A laken, a sheet. We were there a long time. I don't remember much from there. But I recall the weekly fear about who would be deported next to other camps. I don't remember the day when they took our father. Then the rest of us were deported to Ravensbrück. My oldest brother was later separated from us. Odie and me stayed with our mother. I saw many, many women. They all wore the same clothes, strange clothes in blue and white, and they looked at us. I think they talked about food. I remember all kinds of voices in the night, all kinds of women who were crying. Oh, oh. I remember that I was hungry all the time. It hurts to be hungry. It really hurts. It hurts in your stomach. I remember that it was cold and rain and snow. I had lost my shoes and my mother made me some from Jute. Death was among us every day. Knock, knock. Ah, there are Orly and Neria. Come in. Orly, her elder daughter. Neria, one of her grandchildren. I brought vegetables, Ima. Ima, the Hebrew word for mom. Shalom, Grandma. Let me open a window. Can I go to the computer? Okay, but save my solitaire game. I had parents. I need my solitaire when I can sleep at night. What is he singing? He sings to the computer, like karaoke. He can do it all day. He's obsessed with it. That's nice. It's foreign. When I was his age, we had just arrived in the kibbutz in Israel. I saw the other children and I always felt that I'm different. I couldn't sing. I couldn't dance like they did. Never. Excuse me, I go to the bathroom. After they took us to Camp Ravensbrück, we had to take off our clothes and we had to stand in a row. And it took a lot of time to just stand there. And then I saw that they shaved our hair and I tried to escape. I think then I began to rebel. I think from this moment it began. I ran away, Emmie, hide. And then they hit me. Or they hit my mother. I think both of us. And then they took off our hair. Let's go out for a coffee. Okay. Leidrout, Nirja. Once, one of my daughter cut the hair very, very short. I don't remember if it was Ollie or Tammy. I thought that it would begin to cry. They didn't do it again. Over there, this is the cafe where I want to go to. Today, many young people, they shave their hair on one side. They make good coffee. For me, schrecklich. Oh no, it's closed. Let's look for another place. What about the cafe over there? That's too crowded for me. I told you, I don't like to be among many people. And I need to sit near the door with my back to the wall. I remember us standing for hours. And my mother fainted. You know, even as a child, you learn quickly how to survive. I knew I must stay standing. I should not do anything. Because I knew if I'd go to her, they would shoot me. And I was afraid. I was so afraid that she was dying. So I stayed standing. This is the first part of Emmie's memories of the Holocaust. She survived several concentration camps. After Camp Westerbork and Camp Ravensbrück, she had to be in Camp Bergen-Belsen the last 6 weeks. And I will go now to the part where she speaks about the end of the war. And we have to know her mother was all the time with her in the camps, but at the end of the war, when the camp was liberated, some days after the liberation, the mother tragically died from hunger and illness. And this is where we now come into the story again. 1945, when the war was over. I don't remember how I and my brother Rudi came to Sweden. So this is her older brother. She had 2 brothers. I know it was with the boat. I know things, but I don't remember. I came to the Kinderheim and later to the hospital. I had tuberculosis. I am a rebel. In the foster home, they treated us well, but I had fish every day. I didn't like fish. A nurse would sit with me and force me to eat everything up. One day I took matches and lit up the curtains. I wanted to burn the whole house. Of course, it was not only about the fish. In February 1946, Rudi and me were brought to Holland and reunited with our oldest brother, who also had survived. We were all adopted by a Jewish foster family. Will it take long? No, it's just a sketch. Three years later, we immigrated to Israel. I told you that every time when I came back later to Germany, I had the feeling that I must steal something. I just must. What did you steal? Oh, something small, but it is something, you know. I can show you. Yes, please. And she keeps it until today. That's me? Yes. What do you think? Huh, impressive. Though I don't like to look at myself in a picture. But it will be a graphic novel. It will contain images of you, many images. Huh. I know. It's not the image. It's me. That's who I am. Here, this is what I took. What is it? Schraubhaken. Something to put pictures into the wall? Yes, things like this. I don't like the word survivor. Poor him, poor her, poor she survived. I don't like that people feel sorry for me or think that I'm weak. I wasn't weak, I know it. I know that I'm strong. Again, I leave out several pages. Emmie, this is her home in Israel, her garden. It's an important part of the story also, and a home which is very important to her. And I return to the story 1947. Oh no, later, sorry, but this is also a chapter. The three siblings are adopted by the Jewish foster family and are some years in Bilthoven in the Netherlands. This is another part of tragic part, painful part of Emmie's life, which I won't tell now, but it's in the book. We come back to the story after the big foster family with 13 foster children and 3 own children, and the foster parents immigrate to Israel in 1959. Another chapter of Emmie's memories. And this is, sorry, this is now in German, but I read it for you in English. It was a multilingual project and also multilingual conversation all the time. Emmie speaks many languages. She speaks, of course, Hebrew and Dutch. These are her mother tongues, but there's also some German, also a lot of English, and we spoke in a mixture of languages. We met in English, and so English was our language, but there was German all the way also. And with her daughters, she speaks, of course, a lot Hebrew, and with other people Dutch. And so this is now a 2-language translation here. Leni and Leo had always told us about Israel. Their sun would shine always, and we could pick the oranges directly from the trees. We knew we would go there one day because we were Jews and would help to build the country. All the best for your journey, says the teacher in the school in Holland. We will miss you at our school. 1949, after when the Israeli independence war was finished, we left to Israel. After 1 month, we went to Givat-Brenner, the biggest kibbutz in Israel. There, they were willing to take us in. It was winter. I couldn't see the colors anywhere they had told us about. Welcome. Many people came to see Leo, Leni, and the big family who had survived the Shoah. I felt like in the zoo. I wanted to go away from here again, but I was only 11. After we got lessons in Hebrew, we went to the school of the kibbutz. Emmie? Emmie! Until then, I had visited school only 1 year altogether. Nobody had thought about to put me into a young grade. I came into the 5th grade. I had to repeat the first year. I didn't like my new classmates, and all my efforts to catch up seemed to be never enough. Emmie, where did you go? And everything was different from the Montessori school in Holland. So I decided to stop learning. Sometimes I visited school, but mostly I left the classroom. I went into the fields and took a book with me. There have been some teachers everyone was scared of. I was not scared. Why should I have been scared? I knew they would not kill me. As soon as we were a bit older, all children helped working on the fields for 2 hours each afternoon. Here I could meet my friends. All children slept together in children's houses. I shared a room with 3 girls whom I liked. But if I saw a child who walked by their parents' hands, I felt lonely. Until today. This is something I had never experienced. This is one of our Zoom meetings. We met in person a lot of times, but also while the pandemic, we had a lot of Zoom meetings. Me sitting in my studio, and this is Emmie. You've been the only Holocaust survivors in the kibbutz? As far as I know, yes, the big family. Did ever ask you anyone what has happened to you in the camps? No. Never? No. At this time, nobody wanted to hear about the camp, and nobody knew how to treat traumatized children. Nobody could imagine how bad it had been. It was after the Israeli War of Independence. People felt strong. They didn't speak about what had happened for a long time. And I didn't want to speak about. I was ashamed that I had survived the Holocaust. At that time, some people in Israel said that the European Jews let themselves bring like sheep to the slaughterhouse. We were ashamed. Also at my workplaces, I didn't speak about the Holocaust. But in your family, the big family, and with your brothers, didn't you speak about it? No. But Menachem, the oldest brother, when he was old, I thought he wrote a full book about his memories. Yes. And didn't he speak in German schools later on? Yes. But you did never speak with each other? Never. With Rudi, the other brother, I spoke more. With his wife Alice had the idea to go to the memorial of Bergen-Belsen. It was in 1989. We have been driving for 10 hours, starting in the Saarland. We arrived in the early morning. They are still closed. Let's see if we find a door somewhere. This time we tried to come in. We found a hole in the fence. Inside, there was nothing to see, only graves. How long have you been here? About 6 weeks. In February 42, we've been deported from Ravensbrück to this place, Bergen-Belsen. Somewhere here, our mother is buried. Here, 2,000 people are buried, 5,000 here, and so on. In 1957, with 19, I went to the army. There I learned how to work with the first computers, IBM with punch cards. I was good at it. But after a few months, I didn't like it anymore. I asked for relocation, but they didn't let me. So I brought a book and sat with it next to the machine each day, and I didn't work anymore. Hey, today I could get into prison for it, but I was not scared. Then they allowed me to join other young soldiers to go to a Heer Achsut, a place that would become a kibbutz on the border to Syria. I was the secretary of the captain. There I got to know Salah, my future husband. I didn't like any weapons. I didn't like to do what others told me. I didn't like to be a soldier. But I wanted to be like everyone else. I stayed for the full 2 years of duty in the army. After that, I continued working for the kibbutz, until I heard of a family close to Tel Aviv who needed help with a baby. This was my chance. I announced that I would leave the kibbutz. You are free to go, Emmie, but are you really sure about? Here, you have got to eat, to learn, and you had an education, all for free. And now you want to leave us? Yes, I had to be free. And so I left the kibbutz. I knew that I wouldn't like my work in Tel Aviv, but it was my decision, you know. It was my own. For the first time in my life. My problem, my decision. This is us sitting in Emmie's garden. This is Emmie's living room. And I have two last scenes. Another part of the book. Yvonne, 2020. My brother Menachem never spoke about the war, never. And he always said, I will never go to Germany. But when he got older, he decided to write a book about his memories for his daughters. And then he went to Germany for the first time after the war. He joined me to Saarbrücken because Rudi was very ill. We went to say goodbye to Rudi. He died 2001 of cancer. The ceremony took place in Saarbrücken. Many people came, but Rudi didn't want to be buried in Germany. We spread his ashes in France, Holland, and Israel. In Ravensbrück is a Janus face, which he had crafted. Alice, Rudi's widow, asked Menachem and me some months later if we would agree to speak at schools about our memories. Menachem said yes, but he wanted to do it only when I was with him. So I came. The first time was in 2001. I didn't speak, I only sat next to him. Ah, there you are, the children are waiting. Once I wanted to stay outside, but Menachem said, you have to sit next to me. Sometimes someone asked me something, but I could not answer, I could not speak. As soon as I tried, I got a blackout. Some years we did such a tour, 1 or 2 times a year. 2 weeks, 2 or 3 schools each day. Then Menachem got older and couldn't travel anymore. So they asked me to speak. When was this again, Michal, her other daughter? 2012, Ima. It was very difficult for me. They have been young, 15 or 16. I had the feeling that they didn't feel it. They don't understand it. But I pulled myself together and did it anyway, 2 weeks long. Each day, 2 schools. It was horrible. Michal was with me and Alice. Without them, I couldn't have done it. When I finished, it was so quiet. No one said a word. And I didn't know, what's the matter? Are they under shock? They sometimes asked me things like if I had met Hitler or if I had been very hungry or sad. I couldn't do it anymore. Then Emmie started to speak in Ravensbrück. Each year she visits the memorial and speaks with young adults. Yes, there they are older. And they come voluntarily. This is easier. And Matthias is always with me. In the beginning, I did it for Menachem. But now I do it because it is important. As long as some of us live, each year a bit less, we have to do it. Emmie, because it will be history in some years. It is hard, but I do it. Sometimes I can't even believe that I survived. Yvonne 2023. Emmie, what is the color of memory? Which color? Black. If there is something about the camps in the TV, or if someone speaks about the war, I feel things, but I can't express them. I can't speak about them. It is connected to a feeling of humiliation. This is what I feel most when I speak about my memories. Humiliation. I was not human, I was a number, you know. I have the feeling that no one can understand what I feel. But if I don't speak about it, the others can't understand. Not understand what had happened. And it must not happen again. Click. And this is why I have to speak. Now, I watch TV. This is how I relax. Emmie, may I draw you? Maybe now? Huh? Okay. You won't even notice me. Laila Tov. Good night. Thank you for the reading. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for reading from your graphic novel.
You're very welcome.
So, Barbara's chapter that has been published in the edited graphic novel But I Live, and also her graphic novel monograph on Emmie Arbel's life, Die Farbe der Erinnerung, which is going to be published in English one day soon, The Color of Memory, has been part of a larger project funded by a Canadian funding body and set up by a Canadian scholar, Professor Charlotte Chalier. And Charlotte, she created this larger project, Narrative Art and Visual Storytelling in Holocaust and Human Rights Education. And I'm one of the many members of that team. And so Barbara is one of several graphic novelists who work with survivors, not only from the Holocaust, but also from other genocides. So this is sort of an expanding project. And this is just to let you know what the context of Barbara's two books is, but also why I'm sitting here and discussing this with Barbara, because I'm part of that team also. But even before that, I've been collaborating with Barbara on Holocaust-related graphic novels. And so some of the questions that I'm going to ask Barbara now, I have been discussing with her and with other people for a very long time. But that doesn't mean that I know Barbara's answers already, and I'm actually quite thrilled to hear your answers. And here and now also sort of after the completion of your books. So I prepared 3 or 4 questions for Barbara, but we also want to open up and give the audience an opportunity to ask questions. So I'm gonna monitor the chat room also during our conversation here. So please feel free to type your questions. But I have to apologize in advance that we are unlikely to be able to answer or to take up all of your questions due to time constraints. So I will be a little bit selective here, and forgive me. And should I be unable to read your questions or to see your questions during the conversation, my colleagues here will read them for me or help me finding your questions. And so, as Joanne Rundle has asked the question already, and maybe this is for warming up a question, Barbara, that you can answer right away. Has Emmie's family seen the book already?
No, thank you for the question. Of course. Emmie's family did not only see the book, but they have been part of the process of the book, also part of the dialogues all the time. So first of all, her daughters, they sat with us. They, not all the time, but sometimes, and they also joined in the dialogues. They also told me their perspective and about their mother. And I am very grateful for the time they shared with us, as I am very, very grateful for the time that Emmie gave me, and for her confidence, and for the time she shared she had these dialogues with me, speaking about the graphic novels. Yes, it was I think a collaborative project of so many people. I did the art, but also the historians and of the international project. There were many people all together in the dialogue. That was the basis. Yeah.
And I might want to add that, of course, Emmie's daughters and other family members were key in helping Emmie to reassure her to open up, to get the confidence that she needed to be able to work on that project, because she really opened up herself quite remarkably, and she needed reassurances. She knew, of course, what she was doing, but her family helped her greatly.
Her family is just very important to her. And I want also to add that nothing that she told me, she did not tell her daughters she didn't had told her daughters first. So she is speaking about her memories from, let's say, from of an age of 40, after long year therapy, she started to speak, and the first thing she did was speaking with her family.
The audience's questions are just so much better than the ones I prepared. So Barbara, Eva Fromovich asks whether they asked you ever anything, Emmie or the family.
Of course, it was always a dialogue, and it included a conversation. So I like the sentence that Charlotte Chalier once said. She said, Erinnerung ist kein Monolog. Memory is not a monologue. So I think it is multi-layered. Of course, I was the listener most of the time. That was the project all about. But the conversation was, again, we had such a lot of time. So we had not only these heavy and difficult parts of memories, but also we just shared about what are our families and what is happening in the world and how tastes the coffee. And I hope you could see a little bit in the book that Emmie has a wonderful sense of humor and a dry humor, and this was also part of our conversations. But in the book, I wanted to include myself, because it is also a matter of how I tell the story, what is the perspective of narration. And this is, I think, also a transparency of the narration.
But if I might add, Emmie actually never ever challenged you a lot about the Nazi past of your family, and you, of course, wrote the book about perpetrators in your family, your grandmother. And Emmie always stated, if I correct this rightly, well, she trusts you, of course, she likes you, she wants to work with you, but she never kind of asked you anything related to your family.
To this family history, not. No. I asked her if we spoke about it, and I asked her if this is a problem for her, and she told me very clearly that Barbara, you are not your grandparents, and I want to speak with you. And this is all she wanted to talk about it.
Thanks. So Holocaust graphic novels are a curious thing that I sometimes don't understand, because they are so much better suited to kind of delve into some aspects of the past than history books or other written novels in my experience. Of course, here in the room there are artists like yourself and historians who work with graphic novels, such as Kim. And this is something we are experiencing as we speak, the power of Holocaust graphic novels, or genocide graphic novels more generally. So I'm asking you, Barbara, what is it that they can do that other forms of the written word cannot do?
Well, it is. Sorry, I share the screen again just to slide a little bit through my sketches about the drawing process, because I think this is the basis of everything that was happening when we created this graphic novel. I think, and maybe we can see it a little bit in here, what are the possibilities. So I have these texts directly from Emmie's testimonials. And Emmie has such a strong, powerful language. There is the words stand like they are. I could use them right away, the sentences in this clearness. And I started to put them together. What happens if I combine the words with images? And the thing with a graphic novel, I think the possibility, what a great chance is we can create images that haven't been there before, because from Emmie's memories in the camps, we know about that there are very rare picture documentations from the perspective of the persecuted. When we have images, we have them from the perspective of the perpetrators. So what is about a visual memory of someone like Emmie? And with all these references, with the sources, the documents, with Emmie's memory, with the memories of others, like a puzzle, we put it together and we created these the visual memories of what had happened. And this is something. Here's a picture of the three siblings, and I also want to show you Emmie. Sorry, this is I think important to see her. I have some more photos of her. And then is another thing that a graphic novel can do, I think, very visibly, which also a film and the novel, of course, can do also. But it is very important to understand that a memory, first of all, of a child, of a traumatic memory of a child, this is not chronologically, that has gaps, it has empty spaces caused of trauma, but also caused just of because a memory of a 6-year-old can't be complete. This is clear. And also, yes, and these empty spaces are still very important part of this memory of the child, of this person. And with the graphic novel, with the drawings, I can show it. I can frame them. I can put them into an image with black areas or with blurred areas. And again, there's another thing that drawings can do. We can bring memories, traumatic things into the images, but I can use a very open drawing. So I am not exposing things. I try to not reproduce any violence with the images. So I show something, and for me, it is always very important to find a balance between a drawing which is as open as it can be, and on the other hand, as readable as it can be. So what comics or graphic novels always do, we have parts of dialogues, we have parts of narration text, we have even sound words, and we have the drawings and the images and the sequence. These are all like parts of memories. And we put them together, and the reader, again, is putting them together by himself. And that is very good.
So maybe one of the key words is visual memories here, and it's not only about the graphic novelist's craft, but maybe also that historians or other novelists don't try to deal sufficiently with visual memories. And actually, you could possibly try to do that with the written word, but that's something many maybe didn't achieve. I'm just thinking.
Sometimes more direct. It's sometimes more direct because Emmie herself, she told me, my first memories are images. And I think we record it ourselves, that images are part of the memory. And I can tell it more direct, and I can tell about things for what there are no words. I think that is very important in her story. For some memories, there are no words. So we try to draw them.
Whilst we talk, Barbara, there's a lot of praise for your work here in the chat room, and Leslie's question is to be answered with a yes. Barbara wrote the text both and of course the drawings, and translated the text into English this afternoon. Also, I have to say, Olivia's question, hi to Leicester, has I think been answered partly in Barbara's previous answer. And as for Gregory's question, we can't answer that, whether there was a therapeutic effect on Emmie. You would have to ask her herself. We were not in a position to assess that. Maybe
I want to add something. I could not, sorry.
Yeah, and also, of course, it was a very painful process for her to open up.
Yes. But everything that she told me, she had told someone else before. So, and I know I had totally understood the responsibility of what we did here together, and I could not do it alone. So I had advice and I had help of experts from an oral history professor who really told me helped me with how to interview. I had also help from Charlotte, from Alex, who also shared our conversations sometimes. But what the main aspect is, Emmie absolutely knew about her, what she wanted to tell me, what she did not want to tell me, where she wanted to have breaks, and where she said, okay, now I want to stop this process here. And she also told me, Barbara, now finish the book because it's urgent. And I felt the same. So she was the one who absolutely knew what she was telling about. And I am hugely grateful for that, because that was helping us a lot.
And that's very transparent in the graphic novel. So Barbara, that's very clear. And one of the scenes, of course, was visible tonight. And now I want to watch TV. So another sort of clear signpost that Emmie gave and kept on giving in the process. Alrighty, okay, so I had a question again regarding perpetrators and survivors of the Holocaust, and you kind of did two magnificent, outstanding graphic novels. One, Irmina, which has been mentioned before, on a Nazi perpetrator, which was a female perpetrator, and interestingly at the same time a very independent-minded lady. Vaguely based on the story of your grandmother. And now you did a study on a survivor of the Holocaust, Emmie Arbel. In terms of your artistic work and the style, and maybe also the drawing, do the two approaches differ somehow?
Yes, it differs, first of all, because there are 10 years between the two books. And the first book, Irmina, was my first book, but that was clearly a research-based work. And this combines the two books, that research-based drawing is a way of working. And it's not only researching, it's more that the drawing itself leads me to questions again and again. I draw something and then I think about the background, I think about the floor, I think about who is around, and I think about, and that leads to new questions, which in the case of Emmie, I could share with Emmie. And this is the huge difference between the two books, that first, the first one is partly fictional, because I did have no one which direct testimonies I could use. And that was the big luck I had with Emmie, that Emmie is someone who is there. I could go in dialogue with her, and many of the words are directly her voice. And I could not only use her voice, but also speak about this again with her. So it was a continuing shared story that was developing on this dialogue. And I think that this book is go much deeper into the story itself. Irmina was something more told from the outside. It was a character study. It was a novel, a research-based novel. But this Emmie book, led me much closer to the important matters from the inside. So I could integrate the inner thoughts, inner monologues, and combine it with the dialogue. And it was so also much more not in a dramaturgic structure, because memory does not follow a dramaturgy. It is I told it from in the past, and in this very moment we are in the present, and again we are in the past, and I try to follow this structure of memory with the narration, and that was actually what I tried to really fulfill also with the art, to understand from following this narration what it may mean, that because for Emmie this history is not history, it's always part of her present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Christina, do I have another time for another question, or should I hand over to you?
You can ask another.
Okay, but I'll keep it quick. So, Barbara, now you are part of this network of amazing graphic novelists who produce stories in collaboration with survivors who survived the Holocaust or other genocides. And for But I Live, you've worked with the outstanding artists Miriam Libicki and Gilad Seliktar in Israel. And I was just wondering how like you are all so different personalities with so different styles, and you collaborate, partly you became friends, and so I was wondering whether you had frank and open discussions about how shall we represent the Holocaust, how shall we draw it, and did you also sometimes have disagreements too with them?
Yes, thank you. That is a very important aspect of this whole process. I think that Miriam and Gilad lives in Israel, Miriam lives in Canada, and I am in Germany. And then we started the project all together with different, in dialogue with different survivors, but collected in one book. So, and connected from time, and we got to know each other one time in person, but then the pandemic started, and we were not only alone with it, but also alone with these stories in the making. And we needed each other very much, actually. So we tried to meet with these different time zones and different backgrounds, and all of us actually have smaller children, which also, of course, were a big influence in our day, in the pandemic, first of all. And we met every second week on Zoom. We really installed regular Zoom meetings, and we spoke about how we worked and how we approaching the graphic stories, and it was really different. So while I went very much into the inner dialogues, monologues of Emmie, Miriam had a completely different approach. She comes from a manga background, and at the same time, she's an expert about documentary comics. Gilad is does wonderful art with a lot of interesting techniques, and all of us shared this, wanting to find out how can we tell these memories. And I am very happy that we still found very different solutions, which can be read in the book. Yes, and well, like I'm just very thankful that we could exchange about these approaches and also learn. It's always learning how other people do it, and seeing the other stories evolving. And I mean, it was not only meeting with them, we had also bigger Zoom meetings, including all survivors, all historians. And that was very special, I find, that we could continue the dialogue while the years of the pandemic, and also afterwards. Actually, we still meet. Miriam, Gilad, and me, we just met 1 month ago, and it is, of course, yes, it is very important to speak with each other.
Lovely. As I said, graphic novels are a curious thing, and they are extremely powerful. And that's maybe my reply to Gregory here. I don't think that they are actually particularly well suited to reach a younger generation. I think they are quite intergenerational, really, in their reach and in their power. Barbara's graphic novels are particularly powerful and artful. And with that, I want to thank Barbara for having read her graphic novel tonight to us, and for having answered my and our questions. Thank you so much. And I'll hand over to Christine from the Wiener Holocaust Library.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks so much. I hope my connection will stay stable so I can close out the event. But first, I also wanted to thank Barbara Yelin for recounting her cooperation and co-creation with Emmie Arbel here with us today, and of course to Alex for leading us into discussion with such thoughtful questions, and for all of your questions and comments in the chat. These beautiful graphic depictions, as you've heard, not only convey important aspects of Emmie Arbel's memories, but also, I think, Barbara, you're developing dialogue with her, how her memories were conveyed visually and recorded through collaborative and active listening, and through your friendship, which paid tribute to Emmie's painful Holocaust story and to those who did not survive, as well as her life beyond survival. And as comes through in these very brief excerpts, you demonstrate the importance of the relationship that you built with her, that she is more than a survivor, but also how survival shaped her life. And your discussion with her reinforces the idea that liberation, or freedom, this theme that we've been discussing today, was not a single moment, or that the end of hostilities meant the end of suffering and difficulties for those who survived. And life after, of course, was not synonymous with an easy freedom. And I think your sensitive treatment demonstrates just how fragile this has been in the aftermath of the Holocaust. And so I hope that everyone has the opportunity to read and appreciate these graphic novels, as we know very well that this has only been a tantalizing excerpt of what you and Emmie have done. So on behalf of our partners, I would also like to thank each of you for taking part in this event to commemorate International Holocaust Memorial Day. Your interest and support are vital to future generations so that lives such as Emmie Arbel's and her family are not forgotten. And finally, if you have missed any part of the event, please note that we have recorded it and it will be posted on the partners' websites and circulated to everyone who has registered. Thank you once again to all, including our partners at the Stanley Burton Centre at the University of Leicester and the Hamburg Institute for the History of German Jews. And we wish you all a good evening. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.